Good morning and good afternoon, depending on whether you are seeing this in your pajamas at night or you're doing this from your home office or your actual office. It is still COVID time when I'm recording this in January of 2021, and this is a kind of a special presentation because it comes on the heels of so much activity in the world of retail. It comes on the heels of so much upset in the world of retail. We've got a pandemic going on, and boy, it's been a busy 6 months. So this is, as you can see on your screen, a presentation about physical retail trends. I'm a safety and security guy. My name is Rob Reiter. I'm the chairman of the Security Industry Association's Committee for Perimeter Security. And yes, that makes me a truck bomb guy and a vehicle attack guy, but believe it or not, has a lot to do with protecting retail spaces, downtown business areas, and pedestrians wherever we work, play, shop, and eat lunch. This is a presentation for JCK Pro. They and ISC News are your partners in presenting important news and topics to you. I am just one of what I hope is many of these sorts of things for your library of keeping an eye on the safety and security of your stores, your employees, and your customers. So let me go back. As you can see, they've asked me to talk about safety and security, and my quick answer was, boy, I think you sure could use some. Not that the jewelry industry is particularly different from many of the high-end retailers in America, but boy, 2020 was a heck of a year. There were shop invasions. There were vehicles used to crash into stores for robbery. We had accidents where people crashed into mall stores and street side stores, just like on Main Street. You'll be surprised as we talk about it later how often those sorts of accidental things happen, much less when the not so accidental stuff happens. This was quite a year for activity involving theft of all kinds, but smash and grab robberies where people will take a hammer and break your cases, and crash and grab where people will use a car to drive into your buildings. I think the figures aren't in yet, but I'm betting 2020 was a record year for damage and loss in the jewelry industry. Things that we used to think of as being pretty secure and pretty high end, lo and behold, in the face of some very, shall we say, strenuous protests and some looting, even the most up-to-date preventive measures showed failure. And even the high-end sort of stuff with the high cost to it, people were very unhappy with the results in some cases. When you have crowds of people who are determined to get into a building, whether a shopping mall or a standalone jewelry store, a determined crowd will generally be able to gain entry given enough time. It becomes a bit of a police issue. It certainly becomes a security issue. And as you can see from these and other photos, the organized looting that occurred in so many cities in 2020 showed some of the shortcomings of unprotected stores, but also some of the shortcomings of what would normally be regarded as well-protected stores. According to the Jewelers Security Alliance, 2019 was quite a year for jewelry losses from thefts, burglaries, and robberies, as well as other sorts of crimes. But there were 1,438 crimes against jewelers in 2019. Pretty sure that number is going to go up for 2020. Even though there was a lot of closings due to COVID, even though there was a lot less traffic due to COVID, I think we're going to find that the total incidents are going to be up just because of everything we know in the news and everything we know about economic shortcomings, especially in large cities. The other reason you guys are experiencing such significant loss is organized retail crime. That is affecting the jewelry industry significantly. It's also affecting the clothing business, high-end shoes and handbags are always a target. Electronics is always a target, but you'll find that with the possible exception of gun stores, jewelry stores are always very high on the list of gang thefts because your merchandise is turned to cash so quickly. Let me make sure that I had the right one there. I apologize. So if you look up crash and grab ram raids at jewelry stores, you will find more than 20 of these incidents in the last few years. The Storefront Safety Council, which I co-founded in 2014, has built a large database of accidental or purposeful vehicle incursions. We're over 20,000 analyzed accidents right now, and a total of 30,000 incidents over time. These are just some of the obvious ones we pulled out from the database that mention jewelry stores. Some of these might be pawn shops as well. But as you can see, the number of times, not including during the rioting, that vehicles were used to gain entry to jewelry stores, significant. I hope your store isn't listed in here, but don't be surprised if your city or state is listed, because this is a universal problem. This is something that isn't going away anytime soon. So, you know, high-end retail, Louis Vuitton and Gucci and all of those kinds of really big stores. And then, of course, the newer ones that an old guy like me wouldn't know about. And then, of course, the high-end jewelry stores that everybody knows. If you were walking down Fifth Avenue in New York, you would expect to see big, thick glass. You'd expect to see beautiful storefronts, and you wouldn't expect to see plywood, and you wouldn't expect to see a whole lot of broken glass, especially on such a secure storefront. The notion that safe and secure is no longer very safe and secure has kind of been tested in 2020, and will continue to be tested in 2021. And if you don't believe me, it wasn't that long ago that this particular building was considered to be one of the most secure facilities anywhere in the world. And that's our proof that nothing is 100% secure and 100% of the time. If you give enough people enough time, you will find that people can gain entry just about anywhere. The attack on the Capitol in 6 January 2021, it was an experience, I think, that's a wake-up call, not just for government, but certainly for high-end retail and even mom and pop jewelry stores in shopping malls or on Main Street. You have to allow for the fact that determined people, given time, are going to get in. So you have to figure out where to keep your inventory at night. You're going to have to figure out how secure to make your display cases. You're going to have to figure how much to harden your windows and doors. So here we have two big burly guys with two big burly dogs in front of Saks Fifth Avenue, which has plywooded up and has chain link fencing around the side of it so that people can't pull the plywood down. And this is kind of a picture that's emblematic of downtown high-end retail. When things go south, they go south fast, and they, at least in the riots of last year, they go south really big. Police are not in the area. Police are busy doing other things. So people like Saks hire guards to prevent looting. Now, whether 300 people running down the sidewalk overwhelm these guys, or these guys and their dogs are overwhelming the people running down the sidewalk, I don't know. But do we really want to make a plan that includes running a retail store with this degree of security? And even this kind of security, which we all know, we all see, and depending on the neighborhood we're in, we all understand, changes the effects of retail considerably. Now, just as COVID has made us very cautious of how many people can be in our store, and are they wearing masks, and should we go appointment only, and all of those questions, there is, at the end of the day, a fundamental question that every retailer has to face, which has been, on the one hand, complicated, and one hand eased by online sales, is how do I get people in to buy things? What are the parameters? Who do I let in? How many do I let in at a time? What's my security level? What's my access control protocols? For folks who got into the jewelry business years ago because they love the jewelry business, not only are you now having to be experts in HR and security and pandemics, you also have to guess what retail is going to be like 1 year from now and 3 years from now, so that you can plan and so that you can invest. It's a much more complicated world now. And it's complicated in parts because, as you can see, there's been a huge change in the threat and risk environment. I'll read it to you only because it makes the list seem even more imposing. But as we saw, organized retail theft is up. Crash and grab ram raids are up. Robberies of all kinds, up. Hacking, ransomware, network security, data breaches. Unfortunately, this now has as much to do with the jewelry business as it does with every other business. If your credit card system is hacked, if your records are hacked, if people's financial data is divulged through a hack of your system, you will be liable. There is a cost to it. Similarly, there's a cost of reputational risk. If you got hacked and you don't handle it well, you will suffer injury to your reputation, and social media can eat you alive. If there's a perception that you are not friendly to the politics of your city, or if you're perceived as not being friendly to anything from environmental concerns to child labor or anything else, you have reputational risk to social media that you cannot control. As we saw last year, you have the risk of civil unrest, which can lay waste to stores and lay waste to neighborhoods and have long-term effects. You have all forms of business interruptions. Last year, there were long-term power outages in California and Arizona. Of course, I think there were 9 hurricanes, which affected a lot of the Southeast. There are all forms of business interruptions. And then, of course, the pandemic, which no one ever plans for. If you ever look at the long-term threat levels that people like the US military does, or large insurance companies do, they put their lowest threats in the bottom left, and in the center is their most concerned about threats, stacked in the order of oh my God to oh that's okay. And then way up in the right-hand corner at the very top, everybody always puts pandemic, because they've known it's possible. They just didn't expect one to come. And here we are 100 years after the what was called the Spanish flu epidemic, which killed many, many millions. And lo and behold, we've got one. So your threats and risk picture has changed. Very few of us are disease control experts. So how we handle the pandemic really depends on who we listen to and what people are telling us. And as I say, in mid-January of 2021, we've gone through an awful lot of options, closures, masks, all sorts of things. I don't expect that to change anytime soon. Let's talk about disorganized crime for a second. This is a jewelry store in Fresno, California. This gentleman thought he could go over the bollards and into the jewelry store to rob it. They had window coverings, they had the bollards, and he found out that that was not easy to penetrate, and he left. Unfortunately for him, he left his cell phone in the vehicle that was stolen, and they were able to find him quite quickly. Here's something that has very little to do with the jewelry business, except for, oh my gosh, this stuff happens 60 times a day. And I wanted to show it to you, and hopefully I'll get it right so I can show it to you a couple of times. This sort of accident, well, this one is focused, this is a drunk driver in, gosh, I think Wisconsin, who loses control of her vehicle after gassing it up and goes backwards into the convenience store. These sort of accidents happen frequently. And so for a retail establishment, you have to be aware that there's some risk. And I'm going to have to apologize. I'm going to go back because I do want to show that again. And this is, here we are. So the other thing, security cameras, they make it real easy to have these things at beck and call. But see, people are injured in a blink of an eye with these sort of accidents. You can see why they use vehicles to break into stores, because generally speaking, 3,000 pounds of vehicle at 15 miles an hour will break down most doors. These kinds of accidents happen every night and every day, but mostly every night, and they're usually attacks aimed at ATM machines, sometimes attacks aimed at stores to gather merchandise, jewelry stores, pawn shops, gun shops, and sometimes they're just nonsensical. There's so many videos of people who drive into a store, grab a banana and a lottery ticket and a Dr. Pepper, and they walk out. $30,000 worth of damage, $3 worth of merchandise gone. It's just nonsensical. And this video, which we will get going here. This is a bank. This gentleman is demonstrating to you, again, just how quickly things can change in a standard retail environment. There's nose-in parking. The fellow accelerates. He goes right into the bank lobby. Anybody sitting there is injured or killed. And the reason that it's included in here, other than just people love to watch videos of cars crashing into things, is look, he gets all the way in, despite a curb, despite a sidewalk, despite a little wall underneath the windows, and he just misses the ATM machine. Now, if he'd hit the ATM machine, ironically, he wouldn't have made it in the building, because they put those in pretty big and heavy and with considerable secure foundations. But your standard storefront is not going to stand up to a vehicle used to attack you. You have to be aware of the power of crowds. You have to be aware of the power of vehicles, and you have to decide, do you want to spend big money on a reinforced storefront with reinforced glass and reinforced doors with high security locks, or you have to decide whether you're going to keep your merchandise locked up tight at night and hope for the best. Unfortunately, not everybody's an expert in pandemics and vehicle attacks and organized crime, theft, and so forth, but I think unfortunately many of you are having to take that on. So we have a saying in church, you know, everybody knows the big stuff. You know, you're not supposed to kill anybody, and you know you're not supposed to steal from people. The big stuff's easy. It's the little things that take a lifetime of work. I have a friend, Sean Ahrens, works for a company called Affiliated Engineers in the Chicago area. He and I talk all the time, and I told him I was doing this, and I said, what would you tell people on the high end and the low end? And he said, well, it's actually very often the same thing. So he sent me a picture of this door. It's in a strip mall, and it probably looks like the door that many of you have in your shop. It's either your back door or your side door, and it has all the things you'd expect to see. To Sean, he's got a different view. He's got a lot to look at. I'll kind of let this soak in, that there's so many things that he was concerned about. And on this next slide, I've got Sean's name up top and the website for this particular picture. But at the end, I'll give you my contact information, and I can put you in touch with Sean and his company. But so let's look at the door for a second, because it's not just a door to somebody like a thief who knows what he's doing. So number one up top, obviously, lighting and illumination. We know that you want to keep the light on the door so that people can't just stand around without being seen. If you have a swipe card or some other form of identifier to open the door, those are vulnerable to hacking. They're also vulnerable to people who, through various means, have obtained a swipe card from someone who either is a former employee or a trusted delivery person or something. Number three is exposed hinges. I myself have had to take doors off. If the hinges are on the outside, it's surprisingly easy to get a door out. And the alarm generally will not trigger until you've got the door off, which gives you some amount of time to run in, grab what you need, and run out. Number four is an interesting one. So I call that a Knox box. Fire departments sometimes call it a rapid entry, but that's a radio. It's a box with a radio signal device, and that only the fire department have the key to. So if the fire department has to come to your building, they will roll up. They will the dispatch people will look up and find out that that box has the master key. to that door and has a radio code. So they'll send the radio code. Fireman will use a proprietary key to open it up, which the radio code allows, and he'll have the key to your door. Well, a bad guy knows that if you have a 12-pound sledgehammer, you can hit that box. It'll hit the ground, and then if you smash it twice on each side, you will pop off the front door, and you will have a key to that door for the expense of a sledgehammer and 6 swings. So generally, those are better installed. Not on the outside of the wall, but built into the wall, so only the front of it is open, so that the fireman can get to it. Very often it's just done exactly the way you see it. So that's something you guys can all look at your individual locations. Number 5 is the unprotected latch, which means somebody can try and pick your lock or force the latch open using some sort of a device like a crowbar. Number 7 is the keyway, where you would pick the lock. And number 8 is my personal favorite, because I'm in the security business and people spend many millions and billions of dollars securing their sites. So number 8 down there, maybe it's easier if I go back so you can look at it. That's just a piece of cardboard. When you see a piece of cardboard, or my personal nemesis, the 99-cent rubber doorstop, what you're seeing is your employees compromising your security system. They are maybe going to go have a smoke, so they prop open the door so they can get back in. They're going to stand 30 feet away. Or maybe they're going to run out to their car because they forgot their cell phone. So they prop open the door so they can get back in. Anytime your back door is open and unmonitored, you are vulnerable, and so are your employees. So if you are noticing that your back door has some cardboard there, or an empty water bottle, or a 99-cent rubber doorstop, you need to really kind of take a look at it, because that probably means that your security is being compromised during work hours, and you really have no guarantee that it won't be compromised at other times as well. So I've been trying to go through this material pretty quick, and I have some questions that I'm going to answer, but as you can see, picture on the left is a very busy shopping mall in a very upscale neighborhood. And you can just say to yourself, yes, that's the way retail is supposed to be. I would like it to be 2018 again, or 2019 again. But unfortunately, what we experienced in 2020 is much more like the photo on the right. That all came out of a Best Buy store and the Ulta store, and they were looted in Chicago, as were a number of Target stores, as were a number of other stores, including jewelry stores in the downtown area. We want what we had. We have what we're going to get, but there's nothing saying that it's a life sentence. Retail will get better. Things will come back, but in the meantime, how do you invest? Where do you put your time? Where do you put your money? How do you protect your employees? And heaven forbid, how do you make a buck? Because people have to get into you either through the web or through your front door. And both of them, quite frankly, are subject to criminal activities. So let me do this. I have a list of questions that you nice people submitted in advance. I'm going to take a sip. And again, plugging my friend Sean, he helped me with some of the questions. I'm not an expert on some of the questions. I'm not much of a guy in the world of hacking, as anybody who's seen me try to open a PDF would know. So the first question that I had, smash and grab crimes are concerning me more than ever. How do we protect our store and our people? So let's take that on 2 levels. Let's go with simple crash and grab, where someone comes into your store, gets in with a hammer and starts pounding away on display cases and runs out when he's got a handful of whatever. What's often done with those is you simply are going to have to upgrade your display cases, and you're going to need to compartmentalize your store, meaning a person can't walk from case to case to case. We've all seen the videos. 2 guys come in, they start pounding. One guy comes behind and starts picking the stuff up. And when they've got to the last one, they all go and they run out. You compartmentalize your store so that people can't get to all of it. And you install hardened locks, and safety and security barriers, and good locking hardware on your display cases, your window display cases, and so forth. The shatter resistant glass on your exterior keeps people from beating their way in as quickly. And obviously the higher order display cases are very difficult to break into for the average unprepared thief. So the smash and grab and the crash and grab, I think there's going to be more in 2021 than there were in 2019, just so we kind of compare years. If the economic situation gets worse, we'll see an increase in such crimes. But at the end of the day, it's pretty easy to make sure that people can't get to all of your things at once. And it's pretty easy to make it so that people outside will have to take a lot longer to get in. Hopefully that's a deterrent. People will go to the easy side of the street rather than the hard side of the street. Second question, we're ready to invest in more security technology. What are the top 3 items our jewelry store should implement? Everybody has a different top 3, and everybody has a 1, 2, and 3, or a 2, 3, and 1. But Sean and I talked, and we decided that door interlocks, i.e. having a door and then a short distance of kind of a man trap, then another door. So you buzz people in one, and you wait and you check them out to make sure that there isn't too many people coming in at once, and making sure that this is a person who maybe has an appointment or is a customer. Before they get past your second line of defense, you have the ability to not let them in. Second thing, of course, shatter resistant glass, because that's going to take out a lot of the incentive for casual crime. And then there's what's called access control, OSDP, which is Open Supervised Device Protocol. I'll say it again slower so you can look it up on the web. Open Supervised Device Protocol. It's what different parts of your security system and access control system and security cameras, it's how they talk to each other. It's a process and a system rather than an expensive piece of hardware. I would look into that. If you have somebody that consults with you on your security systems or access control systems, they'll know all about it, because it's a more and more regulated part of the business. If you're not aware of it, you should learn. Third question, with the pandemic, we are considering transitioning to appointment only. Are there safety screening questions or processes that work best? 2 things about this. One is, yes, it makes good sense, but unfortunately, there are limitations of what the law will let you do and what public opinion will let you do. I remind you about that part about reputational risk. If it is perceived that you're only letting people in by appointment and you are in some way eliminating any part of the social fabric, i.e. young people or people of color or old people or someone who is dressed a certain way, if it seems like you are discriminating, that will get out on social media. So the simple process of making an appointment and keeping an appointment, that's pretty easy. Your worry is the people who walk up and don't understand how come they can't get inside. Even if the sign says by appointment only, they're going to get hostile. So you need to make sure that you protect your employees from this. People get agitated and they will take it out on the nearest person, which is generally your employee. So you have to teach good communication. You have to teach de-escalation techniques. And the key thing to remember is, if you make an appointment and somebody shows up dressed a certain way, does that mean you can say, oh no, you can't keep your appointment? So know your customer, know your employees, know the situation, and know the risks. What are your recommendations for updating our in-person security and custom engagement with the social distancing and mask requirements? Boy, everybody in America's got a take on that question, don't they? The pandemic has been really hard. You know, physical barriers like the plexiglass and the sneeze guards, masks, you know, they're common now. I don't know how common they'll be in a few months. And there's all kinds of aesthetic problems that you have. I'm trying to think of a better way of saying it, but to the degree we have to maintain social distancing, and that's a requirement, you will have to adjust the architecture of your store. One of the things that I see lots of people doing is if you're working on a desk, you create a space between the desk and where people stand. You can do that by putting another desk there. You can do that by building a short wall. There's many ways you can do that. Display cases is a problem. If you have a 3-foot display case and somebody wants to come up there and you've got to be working the sales side of it, now you don't have 6 foot of distance, you only have 3. I think it makes it difficult for, one of the things you have to do is because people are wearing masks, it's kind of easier for the bad guys than it used to be because everybody's wearing a mask. So you have to be careful that people can't just jump over things and get to employees or get to the cash register or get to the merchandise. Again, you need, people need to know what's expected of them. People need to, your employees need to know how to de-escalate situations. One of the interesting things that one retailer I know very well, they put out snacks and bottled water under the theory that it's hard for somebody to be mad at you if you're giving them food and they're getting to have a bottle of water just for walking in. You have all the problems of people walking around with snacks and so forth, but the notion that you want to de-escalate things, there's many ways of doing that. I don't think a lot of you have been in the position where you've had shotguns on the wall because your clientele is so rough. It's just now the protection of your merchandise is almost as important now as protection of your employees. How do you do that? What's the best way of doing that? It depends a whole lot. As I say, at the end, you have my contact information. I'm much more of an exterior guy. I'll give you Sean's information. He's much more of an interior guy. But at the end of the day, things are changing so quickly and not everybody is an expert. The last question is, I think, a perfect example of that. Here's the question. We've heard of high-end shipping scams where a scammer posing as a legitimate customer submits a large order to be delivered and then diverts the package away from the original delivery address. We're now doing more shipping business than ever. Good for everybody. How can we spot them? And then there's a reference to an article in Jeweler Security. So the answer that is so simple, but it's so hard. Ronald Reagan, Gorbachev, 1980s, trust but verify. You have to trust that the order you have is a legitimate order as long as it's placed correctly and you are paid for it. But then you have to verify that everything goes well with the order, and you need to be able to be notified if somebody tries to change the address of the delivery. You can do that by setting up a third-party logistic party like FedEx and require them to give you shipping alerts if anything is changed from the time it leaves you to the time that it is signed for. You need to confirm the identity of people who order. You can do that very simple with simple techniques like what's the zip code for your office, when you were hired, what's your cell phone number, so that if anybody wants to make a change, they have to provide you with that same number. It's getting to the point, believe it or not, that on some of the organized hackers and retail crime guys have actually AI programs which now mimic human voices that can give an answer. So if you don't know your customer and what your customer sounds like, they can actually say, oh yes, I'm authorizing this or something like that. So you need specific questions to be able to identify people who are legit and people who aren't. This presentation isn't designed to give you every answer, but boy, there's a lot of questions. I don't have time to answer any more, but I do have my contact information here for you. And if you contact me in any of those ways, the number at the bottom is my cell phone, so you can even text me. I can help you get in touch with Sean if you have specific questions, but I can also get you in touch with vendors who make specific products. I know 3 or 4 good glass guys. I know some excellent door guys, depending on where you are in the country. And the information that we've provided to you, while general, I hope in total comes up with the notion that, boy, the risks are changing quickly, the threats are changing quickly. If mobs can take over the Capitol, well, I need to be more careful. And the thing I'll just remind you of, if you do everything you can to make your employees safe, you'll probably make them more secure. And if you make the outside of your building more secure, you will go a long way to making your business and your employees safer. So thank you for the chance to chat with you. Thank you for the chance to help you. And again, here's my contact information. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you very much.